Hello guys, welcome to this second video. On this one you're going to learn how can you create your own custom components. What this will allow you is to create your own tools by storing a definition on a component box, so you can have it always available on your toolbar. So as you work regularly with Grasshopper, you may end up discovering that you always end up redoing certain algorithms or sequences of tasks over and over again. So a smart thing to do is to identify these sequences and store them in a cluster to create what it's called in Grasshopper a user object. So what we're going to do here is to use the definition we created on the previous video and create a custom component for it. So let's go ahead and get started with it. As you can see here I have the definition we created. However, the part that I would like to store on a custom component would be only the one that deals with the sorting of geometries with a curve, which is this one. So right now I'm going to erase everything else that I have from this sort component to the right. And I'm just gonna focus on this small definition. So first thing I gotta do is to set up a cluster. And there's a really specific way of doing this, as I need to define which are gonna be the inputs and which are gonna be the outputs or end up results of my cluster. So to set those one up, I'm gonna go to my params tab, and then here under the util tab, I'm gonna call this component that it's called cluster input, and I'm going to call another one that it's the cluster output, and I'm gonna put it over here. So this cluster input parameter is used to define which ones are gonna be the inputs for my cluster. So as you can see on this definition, I have two inputs, one with the geometries that I'm sorting out, and then the second one is the curve that I use to organize all the geometries that I set up here. So what I'm gonna need to do here is to use, of course, two input parameters, and then what I'm gonna do is to replace this geometry parameter with this one that I have over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to replace also my curve component that I have here. And I can erase these two. And for my output, I'm going to set up the geometries that are already, well, that in theory come out sorted out from this definition. So I'm going to plug my output to this parameter that I have over here. And that's it. Now we have set up our cluster properly. So what I need to do next is to select all my components that I have here. And then I'm gonna go under my edit menu. And then I'm just going to click on this cluster option. And now as you can see, all my components has been grouped in one single box that I have here. So if I double click on it, you can see that I have access to my definition, so I can make some additions or changes to my cluster. To go back, I just need to click on this box and select the return to parent option. If I make any changes, I can always save and close also. Okay, so now that I have created my cluster, the only thing I'm missing is create a user object so I can have it always available for me on the toolbars that I have over here. So this is actually something very simple. I just need to have my cluster selected and then go under my file menu and then click under the create user object option. And then as you can see, a pop-up window appears. So here we can set up the name of our component. So I'm gonna call it sort objects curve or something like that. And here you can also set up a nickname or a short name for it. So I'm gonna here type something like sort CRV. And here you can also set up a description, so whenever you go back to it, you can always have a little description that tells you what does your component do. So here I'm just gonna write a small description of our component. Something like that. And then the next option is the category, which is going to specify under which tab of these ones we want our component to appear. So if you click here, you can see all the tabs that we have on Grasshopper. Maybe I have some extra ones because I have some plugins installed on my Grasshopper. But for now, I'm just going to leave this one, which is called My Tools. And what this will do is to create a new tab over here, and it will store my component inside that one. The next option is the subcategory, which is going to show also a subcategory of my component. So to understand better, we can see, for example, here is my category parameters, and my subcategories will be, for example, my parameters for geometry, primitive, or input parameters. So when I'm creating my tools, I can also organize them in different subcategories. So right now I'm just gonna call this sorting, as this is a component to sort out different objects. And we can actually select up an icon for our component, which is pretty cool. So here we have different options. I can click on here and I can have several preset icons, or I can open all the icon library of Grasshopper and select one of those. Or we can even design our own icon and set it up with this option. So right now I'm just gonna choose one of these ones, the blue folder maybe. And then I just gotta click OK. So now if I go to my tabs and drag it, I can see that I have my newly created tab called My Tools. And if I click on it, you can see that I have my subcategory, which is called sorting. And inside this one, I have my custom component, which is called sort objects curve. So that's it. Now we have created our own Grasshopper custom component to have it always available. And what I'm gonna do here is just check out if it actually works. So I'm just gonna drag it to my canvas. And then I'm going to set up the information it is asking me. So I'm gonna call a geometry component. And a curve component also. I can erase this. And then I'm just gonna set up my geometries. So I'm going to select my slabs. And then I'm gonna also set up my curve. And now I'm just gonna plug them to my newly created component. And if it worked out, now I should have all my surfaces organized in order. So to check that, I'm going to call an area component. And then a point list component, just to check the order of my points. And I'm going to make my numbers a little bit bigger so we can see better. Now I'm gonna zoom in here. And as we can see, our component is working correctly, as now I have my surfaces being sorted out in order. Okay, so it works. Pretty cool. So as you can see, this is a very useful way for you to start creating your own custom tools. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.